right. So today we're diving deep into time management.
Yeah.
And we're going to be looking at a book called 100 Great Time Management Ideas by Patrick Forsyth.
This is a great one.
It is. And, it's a collection of tips and techniques from all these different executives and managers.
Yeah, it's not just theory. It's like people who actually use this stuff.
Exactly. And some of them are like so simple. You're just like, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
But when you read it, you're like, oh, that's so smart.
That's so smart.
So one of the first things that really stood out to me
Okay.
is this concept of know thy time.
Uh-huh.
And it's all about understanding where your time actually goes.
Okay, that's the foundation, right?
Right.
Like if you don't know where it's going now, how are you going to manage it?
Exactly. And I think so many of us, we have this idea in our heads of like how we spend our time.
Right.
But it's often so different from reality.
Yeah, totally.
So Forsyth suggests doing a time audit.
Like track where it's really going.
Yeah. Yes. And you can do it like a simple pie chart,
Yeah.
just like an estimation, or you can get really detailed and do a time log.
Yeah, and I think that's where the real
Oh, yeah.
aha moments come in.
The time log is where you see it.
Yeah, write down like literally everything you do for a whole week.
And how long you do it for.
Yeah, you will be shocked.
You will be shocked.
You really will.
I've been there.
Oh, yeah.
Where you think, oh, I spent the whole day working on this project.
Uh-huh.
But then you realize you answered like 50 emails.
Yep.
And you were on the phone for like an hour and a half.
You're like, where did the day go?
Where did the day go?
Yeah.
It's a wake-up call for sure.
It is, but then you can do something about it.
Exactly. And so once you have that clear picture of your time,
Yeah.
Forsyth is all about planning.
Planning is king.
Yes. He calls it a rolling plan.
Okay, so it's not just like, make a plan and stick to it no matter what.
Right. Because I think when people think about planning, they get overwhelmed.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, I have to plan out my whole life.
Right. Exactly. But he says it takes him like 5 minutes a day.
5 minutes.
5 minutes to maintain his rolling plan.
Okay, so what does that look like?
So he breaks it down into daily, weekly, and monthly components.
Okay.
So daily, you might just jot down like the top 3 things you need to get done.
Right.
Weekly, you're looking at your overall progress.
Uh-huh.
And monthly, it's about adjusting if needed.
So you're constantly kind of reevaluating and
Yeah.
making sure you're on track.
Exactly. It's like a roadmap, but it's a flexible roadmap.
I like that.
That can change as you go.
Yeah, because things change, right?
Right. And then, it's not enough to just know when to do things.
Right.
We have to be working on the right things.
The right things, exactly.
And this is where I love that he brings in SMART goals.
Yes, a
Oh,
classic.
my class.
Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone's heard of SMART goals.
But he actually uses it in the book when he's talking about presentation skills. Oh, interesting.
But I was thinking, you can apply this to any area
But anything.
of your work or even your life in general.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, right?
It's so powerful.
Like, give me an example.
So instead of saying, I want to be better at email,
Yeah, which is like super vague.
right, a SMART goal would be,
Okay.
I'm going to spend a maximum of 1 hour per day on email,
Okay.
and I'm going to focus on projects A and B.
So you've got your time constraint.
Yes.
You've got the specific projects.
Built-in prioritization.
And then you can actually measure it.
Exactly.
Did I spend an hour today or not?
Did I or didn't I?
Yeah.
Love it. And this actually ties in nicely to his next principle, which is delegation.
Oh, yeah, the big one.
And there's a whole appendix in the book just on delegation.
That's how important it is.
It's so important, especially if you're a manager.
Yeah, you've got to get good at delegating if you want to free up your time.
But we've all heard about delegation.
Right. It's like one of those buzzwords.
So what makes Forsyth's approach different? Well, he really emphasizes that it's not just about dumping tasks on other people.
Okay.
It's about giving really clear instructions, setting checkpoints,
Uh-huh.
and then actually evaluating how it went.
So there's like a feedback loop.
Yeah, it's an investment in your team and in your own ability to free up time for the things that only you can do.
I like that.
Yeah, so it's not being lazy. It's actually being more strategic.
Working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
And this kind of leads into another one of my favorite ideas from the book, which he calls speculate to accumulate.
Ooh, that sounds intriguing.
It's all about investing time up front,
Okay.
even if it feels slower initially,
Uh-huh.
to train someone on a task or a process that you know is going to come up again and again.
So it's like that upfront investment pays off big time in the long run.
Big time.
Okay, I'm starting to see the pattern here.
It's about thinking long term.
Yeah, being strategic.
Exactly.
So give me a concrete example of this. Speculate to accumulate.
Okay, so how many times have you been in an office? And the printer jams.
Or, like, the toner needs to be replaced.
And nobody knows how to change it.
And everyone's running around like chickens with their heads cut off.
Exactly. So instead of dealing with that headache every time you take 15 minutes,
Yeah.
you show somebody how to change the toner.
Oh, that's so smart.
And then you never have to deal with it again.
Genius.
Genius.
It's the little things.
It's the little things, but they add up.
They really do.
Okay, so now let's talk about something that everybody knows.
Okay, get me.
The 80-20 rule.
Ah, yes, the Pareto principle.
The Pareto principle.
The idea that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts.
But Forsyth calls it the vital few and the trivial many.
I like that.
Yeah. So the challenge
That's
is...
figuring out which is which.
Exactly. And he says it's not always obvious.
Right. You might think you know what your most important work is,
Right?
but it might not be.
You might be spending a lot of time on things that aren't actually moving the needle.
Yeah, that's scary.
It is so... He really encourages us to analyze our work and see where our biggest wins are coming from.
Okay, so once you know what that crucial 20% is, then what?
Then you prioritize it.
Protect it
Protect it.
from all those other things that are trying to steal your attention.
Yes, and that leads us to another big challenge.
Which is?
Urgent versus important.
Ah, yes, the constant battle.
The constant battle. So we get so caught up in reacting to what's screaming the loudest.
Right, those urgent things that feel like they need to be done right now.
Right, but they might not actually be that important in the grand scheme of things.
And then the important thing.
Get neglected.
The things that are actually going to move us forward.
So this is where Forsyth's matrix comes in.
Okay. Remind me about this matrix.
So he has us break down our tasks into 4 quadrants.
Okay.
Urgent and important.
Got it.
Important but not urgent. Urgent but not important.
Okay.
And neither urgent nor important.
So basically, you're categorizing your tasks based on urgency and importance.
Yeah, exactly. And the goal is to be intentional about how we spend our time.
So not just reacting to whatever pops up.
Right, scheduling time for those important but not urgent tasks.
Because those are the ones that often get pushed aside.
Exactly. And, you know, in this digital age,
Where everything is online.
everything's online. Forsyth actually makes a case for a very low-tech tool.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
The bulletin board.
A bulletin board.
Bulletin board.
Really?
I know, it sounds crazy.
In the age of, like, digital whiteboards and everything?
But he says it allows information to linger longer than it does in our inboxes.
That's interesting.
So things like company news,
Okay.
important reminders,
Things that you don't want to get lost in the shuffle.
things that deserve more than a fleeting glance.
I can see that.
Yeah, so it's like this physical space
Uh-huh.
to keep those important but not urgent items top of mind.
That makes sense.
And speaking of things that can easily derail our best intentions,
Oh, yeah, where you're going with this.
meetings.
The dreaded meetings.
And Forsyth has a whole section on strategies for making meetings more efficient.
So he's clearly not a fan of wasting time in meetings.
Not at all. And one of the things he says is, never end a meeting with any other business.
Oh, I can see why.
It just opens the door to all these tangents.
Right. And then the meeting goes off track and everyone's time is wasted.
Exactly. He says deal with those separate items separately.
Keep the meeting focused on the agenda.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
So we've talked about time audits, planning goals, delegation.
A lot of ground covered.
But I think Forsyth's real genius is in these little practical tips.
Yeah, the things that we can actually implement right away.
That can make a huge difference.
Okay, give me an example.
So he calls them time traps.
Time traps, love it.
And one of them is the measles test
The measles test.
for paper handling.
What is that?
So you put a red dot
Okay.
on a document every time you touch it.
Every time you touch it.
And you will be amazed at how often we are just shuffling papers around
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a lot more than we realize.
without actually taking action.
Yeah, I can totally see that happening.
Another trap he talks about is falling into the comfort of favorite tasks.
Oh, yeah. Those things that feel productive but aren't actually moving us forward.
Exactly, like we all have them.
We do.
It's a form of procrastination.
In disguise.
In disguise. And then he has some great advice for managers
Okay? Always good to get some management tips.
about empowering their teams to solve problems.
So instead of just giving them the answers.
He says, ask them, what do you think you should do?
Ah, so you're getting them to think for themselves.
Exactly. It might take a little bit more time up front.
But it pays off in the long run.
It does, because they learn how to solve problems on their own.
And then you don't have to hold their hand every step of the way.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
It's all about playing the long game,
I love that.
making those small investments now for
Yeah.
a more efficient and productive future.
So what's the biggest takeaway from this first part of the book?
I think it's about being intentional with our time.
Intentional. Yeah.
And recognizing that small changes can make a big difference.
I like that.
Yeah. And there's so much more to unpack.
I'm ready for more.
So stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into 100 great time management ideas.
Can't wait. So as we dig deeper into Forsyth's book,
Yeah.
one thing that really jumps out at me is this theme of clarity.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it seems to run through all of his advice.
It's like the foundation.
Yeah, if you don't have clarity,
Yeah.
you're kind of setting yourself up for failure.
Right. Like if you don't have clear objectives, how can you prioritize effectively?
Exactly. And if your communication's all muddled,
Oh, yeah.
you're just wasting time and creating misunderstandings.
It's like trying to build a house without a blueprint.
Exactly.
Like chaos.
And speaking of communication,
Oh, boy.
email.
A black hole of time.
Right. Forsyth has some really good advice on how to make email less of a time suck.
Okay. I'm all ears.
He's all about being brief and to the point.
No more rambling emails that take 5 minutes to read.
Exactly, because no one has time for that.
Seriously.
Think about it.
Yeah.
You get an email that's like a novel.
Mm.
You have to read it like 3 times
Yeah.
just to figure out what they're asking.
And then you end up sending another email just to clarify.
Right, and then it's this whole back and forth.
That could have been avoided with a little more thought up front.
So it's not just about length, it's about clarity
Being clear and concise.
and proofreading.
Oh, yes. Proofreading is key.
A missing comma can totally change the meaning of a sentence.
So true.
Okay, so let's move on to another big challenge.
Okay.
The tension between urgent tasks and important tasks.
Oh, this is a constant struggle.
Right, we all feel that pressure to put out fires to respond to the most urgent demands.
But then those important but not urgent tasks,
The ones that are actually going to move us forward.
they get pushed to the side.
And that's where Forsyth's matrix is so helpful.
4 quadrants.
Yes, urgent and important but not urgent, and so on.
It's like a visual reminder to be proactive, not reactive.
To carve out time for those important but not urgent tasks.
Even if they don't feel as pressing in the moment.
Because those are the things that often make the biggest difference in the long run.
It's about playing the long game.
Exactly.
Now, one thing I really liked was his idea of productive breathers.
Oh, yes. Taking breaks.
It seems counterintuitive.
Right, you'd think that working nonstop would be the most productive.
That actually
Stepping away even for just a few minutes.
gives your brain a chance to rest and recharge.
And you come back feeling more focused and energized.
It's like hitting the reset button.
And sometimes those moments of rest are when our best ideas come to us.
Oh, absolutely. I get my best ideas in the shower.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's like when you're not actively trying to solve a problem,
That's when the solution appears.
your subconscious mind is working in the background.
Love it.
Okay, so since we're talking about things that can drain our energy and waste our time.
Let's talk about meetings again.
Oh, yes, meetings.
Because Forsyth has a lot to say about making them more efficient.
He's all about having a clear purpose,
Starting and ending on time.
making sure everyone understands their role,
And no any other business at the end.
because that's just a recipe for disaster
It derails the whole meeting.
and wastes everyone's time.
So is there ever a time when a meeting is not necessary?
That's a great question, and Forsyth actually encourages us to ask that question.
Before we schedule a meeting?
Could this be accomplished with a quick email or a phone call?
Sometimes it can.
It's about choosing the most effective communication channel for the situation.
Being mindful of everyone's time.
Exactly.
So, we've been talking a lot about time management.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to also talk about energy management.
Yes, I completely agree.
Because you can have the perfect schedule.
But if you're exhausted,
You're not going to get anything done.
it's like trying to run a marathon on an empty stomach.
Right. You're going to hit a wall.
So how do we incorporate energy management into our time management strategies?
That's the million-dollar question.
It starts with paying attention to how our energy levels fluctuate throughout the day.
Becoming aware of our own rhythms.
Exactly.
So when are we most productive?
When do we need to recharge?
And then we can structure our days accordingly.
Right. So if you're a morning person, you tackle your most challenging tasks in the morning
When you have the most energy.
and save the less demanding tasks for later in the day.
Makes sense.
And of course, there are things we can do to boost our energy throughout the day.
Like what?
Well, sleep is huge.
Sleep is so important.
Most adults need 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep per night.
Quality sleep being the key word.
Right. It's not just about quantity, it's about creating a conducive environment for a restful sleep,
A cool, dark room.
a relaxing bedtime routine.
Avoiding caffeine and alcohol before bed.
All of these things contribute to better sleep.
And let's not forget about nutrition.
Oh yeah, food is fuel.
We've all experienced that afternoon slump after a heavy lunch.
Right, so instead of reaching for those sugary snacks that give us a quick burst of energy, followed by a crash.
We need to focus on eating nourishing meals that provide sustained energy release.
Things like whole grains, lean protein, healthy fats, lots of fruits and vegetables.
Fueling our bodies for the long haul.
Exactly.
And hydration is key too.
Oh yes, even mild dehydration can lead to fatigue and brain fog.
So make sure you're drinking enough water throughout the day.
Carry a water bottle with you.
Set reminders on your phone to drink water.
Whatever works for you.
I've also found that getting up and moving every hour or so really helps.
Yes, movement is so important.
Even if it's just for a few minutes.
Right, a quick walk around the office, some stretching at your desk.
Anything to get the blood flowing.
And sometimes the best way to recharge is to simply step away from work completely.
Do something you enjoy.
Exactly, whether it's reading, listening to music, spending time in nature, or connecting with loved ones.
It's about finding those activities that bring us joy and help us feel more balanced.
And that brings us back to something we were discussing earlier.
What's that?
Delegation.
Oh yeah, such a powerful tool.
It's not just for managers either.
Right, even if you're not in a leadership role.
There are probably opportunities to delegate tasks or responsibilities.
Whether it's collaborating with colleagues or just asking for help when you need it.
Exactly.
It's about recognizing that we don't have to do everything ourselves.
And it's a great way to empower others and free up your own time.
Well, how do we get better at delegating?
Well, Forsyth emphasizes the importance of clear communication.
So explaining the task thoroughly,
Setting expectations.
establishing checkpoints for feedback and progress updates.
It's about providing support and guidance, not micromanaging.
And the beauty of it is that it not only frees up your time,
It allows your team members to grow and develop their skills.
a win-win for everyone.
Absolutely.
So at the end of the day,
Yeah.
all of these time management techniques,
They're really about creating the space and energy to pursue those things that truly matter to us.
to achieve our goals to live more fulfilling lives.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive.
From communication strategies to energy management to delegation.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle that I want to explore.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
We've talked a lot about intentionality and planning.
Right, being deliberate with our time.
But what about the role of serendipity?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Is there room in our carefully crafted schedules for those unexpected opportunities, those chance encounters?
Those moments of inspiration that we couldn't have planned for.
It's something to think about as we continue on this journey of time management. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into time management with Patrick Forsyth's book.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. And, as we've been going through all these different techniques and ideas, I keep coming back to this idea of energy management.
Yeah, it's so crucial.
It is like we can have the most amazing plan.
Right, the perfect schedule.
But if we're exhausted,
If we're burnt out.
it's not going to happen.
Exactly. It's like trying to force a car to run with no gas in the tank.
Right. You're just going to sputter and stall.
You're not going to get very far.
So how do we practically weave energy management into our time management strategies?
Well, it all starts with awareness
Awareness.
of our own energy levels.
Okay.
Like really paying attention to how our energy ebbs and flows throughout the day.
So noticing when we're feeling most alert and focused.
Exactly. And when we hit those slumps,
Because we all have them.
we do. And once you have that awareness, then you can start structuring your day to leverage those peak energy times.
So like if I'm a morning person, I should tackle my most challenging tasks first thing
Exactly when your brain is fresh.
and save those less demanding tasks for later in the day.
Right, when you might need a little bit more of a boost.
So we're working with our natural rhythms instead of fighting against them.
Exactly. And of course, there are things we could do to actually boost our energy levels.
Give me some examples.
Well, sleep is a big one.
Sleep always comes up.
It's so foundational.
It's the foundation of everything.
Most adults need 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep.
Quality sleep being the key word.
Right. It's not just about quantity. It's about making sure that sleep is actually restorative.
So how do we do that?
Well, creating a relaxing bedtime routine can help.
Okay.
Avoiding caffeine and alcohol before bed.
Making sure your bedroom is cool and dark and quiet.
All of those things contribute to a better night's sleep.
And then, of course, there's nutrition.
Oh, yeah. What we eat has a huge impact on our energy levels,
We've all experienced that post-lunch food coma.
where you just feel like you could take a nap right at your desk.
So instead of reaching for those sugary snacks or processed foods that give us a quick burst of energy followed by a crash,
Right.
we should be focusing on nourishing meals that provide sustained energy release.
Things like whole grains, lean protein, healthy fats, lots of fruits and vegetables.
Giving our bodies the fuel they need to function at their best.
Exactly.
And let's not forget about hydration.
Oh, yes. So important. Even mild dehydration can make us feel tired and sluggish.
So make sure you're drinking plenty of water throughout the day.
Carry a water bottle with you. Set reminders on your phone, whatever works for you.
I also find that getting up and moving every hour or so makes a big difference.
Yes, movement is key.
Even if it's just for a few minutes.
Right, a quick walk around the office, some stretching at your desk, anything to get the blood flowing.
Sometimes I just like to stand up and shake it out.
That works too.
And sometimes the best way to recharge is to simply step away from work completely.
Absolutely.
Do something you enjoy.
Whether it's reading, listening to music, spending time in nature, connecting with loved ones.
Those things that fill us up and make us feel good.
Right.
It's all about finding that balance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to something we were discussing in the last part,
What's that?
serendipity.
Oh, yeah, serendipity.
We've talked a lot about being intentional with our time, about planning and
Or
prioritizing.
creating that structure.
But is there space in our lives for those unexpected moments?
The things we can't plan for.
Exactly. Those chance encounters, those bursts of inspiration.
Because sometimes those unplanned moments lead to the most amazing opportunities.
They do. And I think it's about finding that sweet spot between structure and flexibility,
Between intentionality and openness to the unexpected.
because that's where the magic happens.
I love that.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Patrick Forsyth's book, I want to encourage our listeners to think about what resonated with them most.
What are those one or two things that they can start implementing today?
Right. What small changes can they make to start creating a more fulfilling and productive life?
Because it's not about trying to do everything at once.
Right. It's about taking those small steps, making those consistent changes over time.
That eventually lead to big results.
And who knows? You might just stumble upon some amazing opportunities along the way.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into time management.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, may your days be filled with purpose, productivity, and a healthy dose of serendipity.